Welcome to our channel. Today, we're diving into the fascinating life of Ada Lovelace, a woman who was way ahead of her time. Picture this, it's the early 1800s. Most women are expected to focus on household duties and social graces. But not our Ada. Oh no, she's busy revolutionizing the world of mathematics and computer science before computers even existed. Born in 1815, Ada was the daughter of the famous poet Lord Byron. But don't let that fool you, she wasn't following in Daddy's literary footsteps. Ada's mother, determined to prevent her daughter from developing her father's poetic tendencies, insisted on a rigorous education in mathematics and science. And boy, did that decision pay off. Ada's mathematical skills were off the charts. But her true claim to fame? Her work with Charles Babbage on his analytical engine, essentially a mechanical computer. Now, you might be thinking, a computer in the 1800s? Come on! But Babbage's machine was the real deal, even if it was never fully built. Ada saw its potential beyond mere number crunching. She envisioned it creating music, producing graphics, and even manipulating symbols. Sound familiar? That's because she basically predicted modern computing. Ada wrote extensive notes on the analytical engine, including an algorithm for calculating Bernoulli numbers. This is widely considered to be the first computer program ever written. That's right, the first programmer was a woman, and she did it in the 1840s. Sadly, Ada's life was cut short. She died at just 36 years old. But her legacy? It's alive and kicking. The programming language Ada is named after her, and Ada Lovelace Day celebrates women in STEM fields every October. You might be wondering, how did a young woman in Victorian England end up collaborating with one of the leading mathematicians of her time? Well, it all started when Ada was just 17. She met Charles Babbage at a party, and they hit it off immediately, bonding over their shared love of mathematics. Babbage was so impressed by Ada's intellect that he nicknamed her the Enchantress of Numbers. Talk about a cool title, right? But Ada wasn't just Babbage's sidekick. She brought her own unique perspective to their work. Remember how I mentioned Ada saw beyond mere calculations? Well, she proposed using the analytical engine to compose music. She wrote, supposing, for instance, that the fundamental relations of pitched sounds in the science of harmony and of musical composition were susceptible of such expression and adaptations, the engine might compose elaborate and scientific pieces of music of any degree of complexity or extent. Sounds an awful lot like computer-generated music, doesn't it? Ada was literally imagining the future of technology. But here's the kicker, Ada's contributions were largely forgotten for almost a century after her death. It wasn't until the 1950s that her notes on the analytical engine were republished, and people began to recognize her pioneering role in computer science. Now, you might be thinking, why was she forgotten for so long? Well, it's a classic case of history overlooking women's contributions. But thankfully, that's changing. In recent years, Ada has become a symbol of women in technology. Did you know there's even a graphic novel about her adventures? The Thrilling Adventures of Lovelace and Babbage imagines an alternate reality where Ada and Babbage successfully built the analytical engine and use it to fight crime. Now that's a superhero origin story I can get behind. But Ada's influence goes beyond pop culture. Her story inspires countless women and girls to pursue careers in STEM fields. She showed that imagination and creativity are just as important in science and technology as technical skills. So, what can we learn from Ada Lovelace? First, never underestimate the power of an interdisciplinary education. Ada's understanding of both the arts and sciences allowed her to see possibilities others missed. Second, don't be afraid to think big, really big. Ada's ideas were revolutionary for her time, but she didn't let that hold her back. And finally, remember that progress often comes from unexpected places. A poet's daughter working with a mathematician in the 1800s laid the groundwork for the digital age we live in today. Who knows where the next big breakthrough will come from? Now, you might be wondering, what happened to Ada's work after her death? Well, it's a bit of a roller coaster ride. In the late 19th century, Ada's notes on the analytical engine were largely forgotten. But here's where it gets interesting. During World War II, Alan Turing, the father of modern computer science, came across her work. He was inspired by her ideas, especially her vision of computers being able to manipulate symbols beyond just numbers. Turing's work led to the development of the first modern computers in the 1940s and 50s. In a way, Ada's ideas had come full circle, influencing the very technology she had predicted a century earlier. But Ada's story doesn't end there. In the 1970s, the U.S. Department of Defense developed a new programming language. They were looking for a name, and someone suggested Ada. It stuck, and suddenly, Ada Lovelace was back in the spotlight. The Ada programming language is still used today, especially in aviation, healthcare, transportation, and space industries. So, in a way, Ada's work is helping to fly planes and launch rockets. Now, let's talk about Ada's impact on popular culture. In recent years, she's become something of an icon. She's been featured in novels, plays, and even operas. Yes, you heard that right, there's an opera about Ada Lovelace. But perhaps more importantly, Ada has become a symbol for women in technology. The Ada Initiative, founded in 2011, supported women in open technology and culture before closing in 2015. And remember Ada Lovelace Day? It's grown into a global celebration, with events held around the world to highlight women's achievements in STEM fields. Ada's story also challenges our perceptions of the Victorian era. We often think of it as a time of strict gender roles and limited opportunities for women. But Ada's life shows that there were always those who defied expectations and pushed boundaries. Here's a fun fact: Ada was also a gambler. She used her mathematical skills to develop a system for betting on horse races. Unfortunately, it wasn't as successful as her work on the analytical engine, and she ended up in debt. It just goes to show that even geniuses aren't perfect. But perhaps the most enduring part of Ada's legacy is her vision of technology. She saw that machines could be more than just calculators. She imagined them creating art, music, and even having a kind of artificial intelligence. In her notes, she wrote about the possibility of a science of operations that could be applied not just to numbers, but to other symbols and objects. This idea is at the heart of modern computer science. So, every time you listen to computer-generated music, or see AI-created art, or even just use your smartphone, you're experiencing a small part of Ada Lovelace's vision. Not bad for a Victorian countess, right?